Okay, this is going to be my Lenovo ThinkPad T480S Ultimate Upgrade. It's a great machine. I've been using it for a couple of years. I've upgraded a few of these. So I'm just going to show you the process of how to turn this machine into a beast. Let's see what we're working with here first. I've got 8 gigs of DDR4 laptop RAM with the internal 8 gigs. Turn it to 16 dual channel. 256 GB NVMe SSD. Upgrading it from a SATA. A 512 I believe it is. It's gonna boost up the speeds. I got Wi-Fi 6. I'm gonna get rid of the Wi-Fi I currently have, which is I think 8256. Gonna be changing that with a Wi-Fi 6 card. WWAN slot. Now this is the one that people have been asking about. I'm gonna put 128 GB NVMe SSD in there. Have a secondary operating system. You could use it as additional storage, but for myself I would like to have a dual boot system. Let's have a look at both of them a bit closely. So you can see the one that's going to go into the WWAN slot has 2 notches, whereas the normal one only has 1 notch. So you got to make sure you got the 2 notches on your NVMe card that's going to go into the WWAN slot. The other one will not work, so you got to be very careful when you purchase one of these cards, making sure you got the right one. I'm going to need an extender for this one, as I need it to be a 2280, whereas the actual NVMe is a 2242 size. Gonna be changing some thermal paste. So I've got MX4 thermal compound that I'm gonna put onto the CPU. I doubt that the thermal paste has been replaced since it came out of the factory. So let's take the machine apart. Let's take the back cover off and see what we're working with. So now the back cover is off. Let's do the easiest thing first. Let's put the RAM in, dual channel. Let's get the SSD. I've got a size 2242 SSD here, so I will need an extender, which I do have. Let's take off the thermal pad from the SATA. Let's snip it in 2. I can use it for both of my NVMEs. Let's stick one on the main NVMe. So let's slot it in, just make sure it clicks into place. Get the extender and let's tighten up the screw. So that's the RAM and the SSD done. Let's move into the WAN slot. Let's put a thermal pad on the bottom of that. Keep the temperatures at a reasonable level. Now let's move on to the Wi-Fi 6. Let's remove the dual channel card. Let's remove the clips off the dual band card. Let's take out the card and it should be a straight swap. So dual channel 8265 removed and gonna be replaced with the superior Wi-Fi 6 card from Intel. So now we've got the Wi-Fi 6 card. Let's make sure we've got the clips in the right places, 1 and 2, the grey and the black. So this is quite important not to mess up. You can hear the click, there you go. Let's clip it in, make sure it's inserted properly. Slide it back into place. And then we can screw it down. And you got a cover on top, which is great that they've supplied that. Keep the wires in check. Just make sure everything's sitting in place before we screw it down. There we go. So I've got the RAM, got my Wi-Fi 6 card, WWAN slot has been populated. I'm going to put FidoOS in that. and my NVMe SSD. So let's remove the fan. Now let's move on to the thermal pasting. Just got to remember, we've got to take off the fan, take the clip off the motherboard as it's connected to the CPU cooler. I don't think the thermal paste has been changed since it came out of the factory back in 2018. Yeah, the thermal paste is really crusty. That will need to be removed. Let's get some alcohol wipes. Let's remove this crusty thermal paste. We're in 2026 now, so it hasn't seen any thermal paste. It's been about 8 years since it was initially applied. This should help with the cooling. The fan is a bit dusty, but it's okay. I'm not really concerned too much about it. So I've got a couple of thermal pads here. I want to put them throughout the laptop. I like these thermal pads. I've seen it being used on the CPU, not the actual CPU chip, but I believe that's the graphics chip. So that's what I'm going to do here. And then I like to put the pads throughout the laptop on certain points. That's what I'm doing now. You don't have to do this, it's just my little signature, I suppose, my way of doing things. Now we've got the MX4. Don't need to put much onto the CPU, a nice fat blob. And just make sure not to overdo it. And that should spread out once you've reinstalled the fan. You can see that they've used padding to protect some of the areas on the motherboard. So, right, just make sure it's all aligned before you squash that thermal paste down. Just be gentle. And once it's aligned, screw it back in. Make sure to put the fan back in, clip it back into the motherboard, and there we go. So now I've got my SSD, I've got my WWAN slot, I've got my Wi-Fi card, thermal paste is done, and my RAM is done. So that's it. That's all my upgrades. Let's take a closer look. You can see now this should revive this machine and give it longevity. There's other upgrades that you can do, such as the screen, but I'm not doing that. I'm okay with the screen, the battery, but the battery's fine, it holds power. I've got Lenovo Vantage, and that sort of is a great app to have to keep on top of that stuff. Let's screw it back up. I'll show you the upgrades once I've installed Windows. We can go into the task manager. Let's let it load up. I've got Windows in there now. Let's go into the task manager, and then we can see under performance, we've got the GPU there. The Wi-Fi card has been recognized and in use. I did have to put in drivers for it, so that's something to keep in mind. Got my USB that I installed Windows in. So my primary drive on the C drive, disk 1, that's what we're running Windows from, and that's just gonna, the boot times have just increased dramatically. Secondary drive now, you can use as storage, but I've got FidoOS installed in there. The RAM, 16 GB, so doubled. Dual channel, both slots in use, the internal as well as the one I've just loaded. And my CPU is an i5 8th gen. Let's go into disk management. I'll show you the drives. disk 0, which is the one that's populated in the WWAN slot, and the partitions that you see in there is something that FireOS does once you install it. And then once the computer boots, I can just press F12 and then I can choose between FireOS or Windows. A couple of apps that I think that every person should have. If you've got a Lenovo, you want to get the Lenovo Vantage. You also want to get the Intel drivers update software. That's really good, and that way you can keep your machine updated with the latest drivers and updates and all the good stuff. Yeah, so the computer initially had the WWAN slot wasn't populated, the Wi-Fi was dual band, 8 gigs of RAM only, single channel, and it had a SATA SSD. So huge upgrades that have been done. Anyways, thanks for watching. All the best. Take care.